Hey, Facebook! Oh, let me turn off my phone. Okay, hey, Facebook. It's Crystal Marshall from martialartsstudiophotography.com, and today is number three day of our webinar, and today is going to be my favorite day. Today we are talking about what makes a good photo. So it's going to be a little bit of everything, a little bit of lighting, a little bit of texture. I need to get some water. Hold on that second. 1 second. Oh, thank you, dear. Here, give me some water, sweetie. Whew, I forgot to grab some water. My lovely assistant, my husband, I forgot to remind him to get him some water. Get me some water. So, thank you, dear. Alright, so today we're going to talk about what makes a good photo. Let me recap the past two webinars. The first webinar we talked about what camera to buy, and I talked about basically what camera to buy would depend on how much time you have, what look you want, how much control that you need in your photos. The second day we talked about how to control your camera, especially if you have a DSLR. Or if you went to Best Buy or Amazon and bought a DSLR. So that was kind of day number 2, how your camera works, how the shutter, how the aperture, and how the ISO all work together to make your picture amazing. Today we're going to talk about kind of like my secrets of what makes a good photo. So we're going to hop right into it. Where am I? There you go. Andrew, can I get that water? Thank you. Here we go. So what makes a good photo? So as we talked about, here you go. The first two webinars, we talked about kind of the secret sauce of my personal favorite thing about photography is what is photography. So photography, for the last 2 weeks I've talked about this. This is the third time. Photo is light, and graphy is to write. So you're writing a story with light when you're taking a photo. And especially just how powerful imagery can be. Today me and my husband went on a date, which is a really big deal for us because we have 3 kids. And we went to a small art museum inside the mall. They had a couple of student photographers, student artists inside the mall. And it was just really neat to see so many stories curated in one place. We had someone that went to Africa and they documented their trip. And it was just so moving to see like the story behind, you know, this particular person. So photography is writing a story with light. Very important. The with light is the most important part of photography. Without light, without the right kind of light, without the right direction of light, without the right softness or hardness of light, your photo might tell a totally different story than what you want it to tell. And let me give you an example of this. Let me pop over to this slide really quick. So we talked about this, I think the first or the second webinar, and how each kind of light tells a different story. So this is my son. These were all taken with the same camera, same lens, and these were all taken without any studio lights or fancy, you know, kind of thing. These were all natural light, what I found around me. So we have mysterious, we have dramatic, we have whimsical, thoughtful, a playful story, and an intense story. So these are just some words that reminded me of what I'm trying to tell in the photo. So again, writing a story with light. Light comes in different directions. Light comes in different degrees, different intensities, and each of those factors will make your photos have a different feel to them. So let me hop you back a little bit more. So now that we have a camera, you know, what do I do with it? Oh. No, I am. I'm on the right side. Okay, good. I thought for a second I was in last week's photo because I had different days in the same days. Okay, so anyway, so tip number 1, we're going to hop right into it. Tip number 1, we need to find good light. And this is going to be the key, the key, the key. I cannot emphasize this enough. Finding good light will make a totally different look, just like I said. So what, right here, don't use a flash on your camera. No matter if you have a phone, if you have a DSLR, if you have anything, try not to use the flash that comes with it. I know you're like, well, why? I mean, that's why they have it in there. Honestly, I don't ever use the flash on my camera that comes with my camera, not for any reason. And I will tell you later what I do use for a flash if I do need one. But try to find a natural window source, light source, if possible. So if you're not outside, if you're inside, try to be near a really beautiful big window source. Let me show you an example of this right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my wonderful, wonderful ugly house, and with all my homeschool stuff in it, I'm going to turn on the lights. I'm going to turn off this light. And look, we have, this is the light that is in my house right now. This is the light that is in most people's house right now. This is not the light that will look good in your photos. So if you are inside and it's dark, try to get possibly like what I have here. I have a really nice indoor light bulb. I think it's a very, very soft white light. I think I got it from some Home Depot or Lowe's. And I put a white umbrella to soften the light. Very, very important. You want light that's very soft. If you don't have that, try to get, you can even soften the light with a bed sheet. Anything white will do the trick. If you really want to have flash, then I will talk about that in a little bit. But this is a creative way to bring in some light to your photo. This is a $5 selfie ring light. I can put it to the side. I can have it over here. I use it for a lot of food photography. I use it for a lot of just things around my computer. So here's an idea of something. You can also use the flashlight on your phone to light a subject from the side. So that's a very interesting idea as well. Alright, so let me turn off all of these. Let me first turn on my light source to show you. Oh, honey, I already did it. It's okay. So let me turn. Yeah, I already did it, honey. You missed it. Here we go. So look, what a difference. We have a beautiful white diffused light source with an umbrella. We have a white background. We have all of the nasty yellow lights turned off, and it's like night and day. The light, the type of light that we have, the temperature of light. Alright, so here would be an example of the same bowl of food that I had. I took this last year. I did a whole video about this. This is the same bowl of food, same vegetables, different light. Totally makes a difference. Okay, the first bowl of food was taken with the flash that comes on my camera, the pop-up flash that comes onto my camera. It just went ch-ch. The second one was taken with no flash, and I had it kind of in the back of the kitchen where there's like a little window. But the tablecloth is really, really, really busy, and it just didn't. The lighting is a little bit better, but the tablecloth just doesn't fit with the mood. So what I did was, I actually had my floors redone, and so I had all of the concrete kind of stripped down to the very, very concrete. I thought it made a really interesting texture. So I put the same bowl. Well, I mean, obviously it's a little different than a bowl. I mean, this one was a wooden bowl that I found in the cabinet, and this one is like a blue bowl. So technically it's not the same bowl, but it's the same amount of vegetables that I just kind of rearranged. And I put it on the concrete of my house, and I had the door open just slightly, and I just allowed the natural light to come in. So that would be an example of a better lighting situation than just the pop-up flash. Here is another one. I took this one a couple weeks ago, and I actually did in the webinar, was it last time or the time before, I talked about this. This is the same ramen. This was, the first photo was done right here in my kitchen with the overhead light and that nasty yellow light that you just saw. That was the first bowl. The second bowl was taken with all the lights off, and I had this selfie light going. You can also do this effect with just a window light. Having just a beautiful white light source from the side, it makes such a big difference. Okay, so here we're going to talk about flash. What if I do need a flash? Now this was taken with my son at the aquarium, and if you all haven't ever been to an aquarium before, they are dark. I mean, they do it that way for a reason, you know, for the environmental experience and that kind of thing. And that's awesome. I definitely did not use the flash in this photo, but I use it as an example. What if I do need flash? Okay? So we're going to talk about that, especially if you have a DSLR, and we'll say that in a second. Okay, here we go. We have ways to take a picture out without flash. Ways to take a picture without the flash. Okay, so before we even talk about the kind of flash that I use, which is here, I will tell you some creative ways to use, to simulate using flash if you absolutely need flash, okay? Using a tripod, for example, you know, something like this you can get on Amazon for about $10 or less. You know, using a tripod is great because a tripod allows your camera to be still, and then you can adjust the camera to allow more natural light in without having a blur. So that's why a tripod is really great, and I will show you more about how to use tripods tomorrow for our special really, really cool DSLR camera tricks, which I'm super pumped about. Number 2, looking for creative light around you. For example, let me hop over to my Facebook page. I am always waking up seeing, you know, beautiful light around me, beautiful ways that the light is coming into the house. So here would be an example of me and my kids. This was a couple days ago, and the light was just coming in from the kitchen so nicely. This was not taken with a flash. The light was just very soft, and it was just very welcoming. This was a very interesting photo. Let me try to find the color one. Let me see here. Maybe I just need to like flip through it. So this is the same situation where the light was coming in. Let me try to find the one. Yes, that's the one. Here we go. So the light was coming in through my kitchen. I had the baby gate up. I mean, because I have a 9-month-old, you have to have baby gates, okay? And the light was coming in, and it's just creating this really beautiful stained glass looking effect. And I had the kids just kind of just lay down on the ground, and the light was just very softly bouncing up into them. This was not taken with a flash at all. I actually turned off the lights in the whole living room on purpose. And you see this, the nasty yellow light in the background. I probably should have turned that off, but I was in a rush. And when you have a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old that are actually looking cute, you don't really have that much time. But, so that would be an example of looking for creative ways to find light around you. Let's get back to that slide. Using a flashlight on your phone from the side. So this is an example of a couple of years ago. I took photos of my daughter for my daughter's 4th year birthday party. And what I did was, I walked around all day literally with my camera. Like, from when she was waking up, to when we had pancakes, to when we opened presents, to when we went to a hot dog stand, which was her favorite little thing to go to. And so I just kind of documented her whole day, which is a wonderful thing. I always encourage people to kind of step out of your box and do something that you've never done, and that was definitely something I'd never done. So this was taken without flash as well. And what I did, I had them reading a book. I had a flashlight from my phone set up right where I knew that she would look like to the side, so that I was shooting on to her, and I had Daddy say some kind of funny phrase or something to make her laugh, and then I had the flashlight illuminating her head, and see how the shadow is really harsh and it kind of bounced in the back of the room and you see Daddy's face. I just thought that was a really cool little effect that I did. And again, that wasn't taken with any on-camera pop-up flash. That was just taken with a light to the side. Using any other light source, you want to make sure you can use like a fluorescent light that you find in your closet. You can get like a, the rectangular fluorescent light from Home Depot for like less than $10, and you can play around with that if you really need a nice light source. Getting, like I said, a video light. You can look for light around you. I mean, there are so many ways that you can look for creative lighting, except, having that nasty kitchen light like I just told you. Okay, so let's say, what if you really do need to use flash? So let's talk about that. My brother-in-law uses this type of flash, which is the newer flash. You can get it on Amazon for about $30. I personally use Yagnuo, which is awesome, and they're only about $70, which compared to a Nikon or a Canon version, I mean, those are $400 and $500. So I have about 6 or 7 of these. I love them. I use them for weddings. So this type of flash I would definitely get if you are serious about having some type of flash, but it's not super complicated, okay? And you want a little bit softer of a light. And what's really, really cool about this particular type of flash, it doesn't really matter what brand you get, they're all kind of good. They all do the same thing. This type of flash is really cool because of the head that swivels and goes up and down. Now this is very, very, very important, because if it goes on your camera, you would think, let me point it at the person, but that is going to create a really, really harsh shadow on their face. It's just gonna be like really, really harsh. And if that's the effect you're going for, okay, but it's gonna have kind of the same effect as using the pop-up flash. Okay, so we don't want that. So this is the kind of thing you can angle it up to the ceiling and have the light bounce off the ceiling. Most people have white ceilings, and it'll bounce off and it'll create a beautiful kind of umbrella look onto the ceiling. If you have a wall next to you, you can bounce it to the wall and it will create a very similar effect to what we have seeing right here with the umbrella. This very soft, diffused light. The bigger the light coming back to the person, like from the ceiling, from the wall, from another wall, from a big window light, you're going to have a very beautiful and soft, forgiving light source. If you have this super small pin light, or the one on your camera, the little pop-up, it's just going to be a very pinpointy light. You want a really beautiful big light source. If, let's say, you don't have a ceiling and you don't have a wall next to you, how do you make your photo look okay without having to go like this? Well, let me show you a really, really ghetto fabulous trick that I use. And I actually did this at a wedding recently and people were making fun of me. All you need is like a white, postcard or a index card, or you can even use, if you really want a super shiny light, you can use like tin foil or something. But somebody was making fun of me at a wedding for doing this. She's like, why don't you buy something? And I'm like, well, it does the same thing. Anyway, it was just really funny. So what you're going to do is, so I have my big white. You're going to take a rubber band. They actually make things for this, and I do have one, but in a pinch at the wedding. What you're going to do is you're going to have the flash pointed up, and then the light is going to shine up, and it's going to reflect onto your person. And it's just going to create a bigger, softer light source. You want a light source that's been bounced, kind of like what the moon does with the sun. It bounces light from the sun to the earth. And this is kind of the same effect we're doing. We're bouncing it up to the wall that we've created and bouncing it back on to another person. You can also do the same kind of effect. Let's say you have a piece of wax paper. You can put the wax paper, rubber band it to the front. It will create a little bit softer of a light source coming off of your camera instead of just this, you know, direct light. A lot of these actually come up with a white card that pops out, but since I have 3 kids that like to destroy my stuff, they pull them out, and so I have to do something like this in a pinch. So, let's move on. Of course, day of all days. Yesterday, I lose my voice, and I'm like, I can't have this happen. I have this webinar. Okay. All right. We're going to play a little game. Which one of these were taken with a pro camera? So this was, all of these were taken with the same camera. It's the camera I use for weddings, and it had a professional lens on them. All of them were taken with this camera. Every single one. What is the difference? The difference is the light, the softness of the light, the direction of light, the amount of light, all of these things. So let's go through this. The first one is of me, obviously, and it's taken, I literally took a selfie with my camera holding it up like this, and I, you know, just went like this, and it was right near a big window light. That's all that is. So that is window light. This is in daytime. This is why it's yellow. This is the kind of light that you're going to see during the daytime. I think it was a foggy day or an overcast day then. And overcast days are really, really great for portraits because everything is beautifully soft. It's kind of a natural diffuser. Kind of as a side note, I don't really like shooting in that kind of light because I kind of like having a little bit more of a challenge with the sun coming through, and you have a lot of really cool effects you can do with the sun. But either way, it's really nice. Okay, so let's talk about shooting at nighttime or shooting in a situation where you don't have access to natural light. So these are all taken in my living room with my husband. And the first photo was taken with no flash. This was just my camera with no flash. Okay. This was the second one was my flash pointed directly at him. It's a very, very big shadow in the back. It's okay. It's not too bad. The third photo is of the light bouncing off of the ceiling, and you see everything around him is lit up, and that's not too bad. This fourth picture, I literally put up a bed sheet, and I have a video about how I did this. I literally put up a bed sheet clamped to like a music stand next to him, and what I did was I aimed my flash to bounce off the white sheet and hit him very softly in the face. And that's what you see here. Yes, you could do it with some pretty advanced, you know, studio, softbox, and that kind of, it would have the same effects. But I really wanted to show you that even without all the fancy stuff, if you just have one flash and a bed sheet or a pillowcase or a white wall or anything, you can bounce the light off of any white surface that you have, a poster board, one of those display boards you get for science fair projects. So you can use light all around you to manipulate what you want it to say. All right, so that was just having good light. So there you go. Number 2, have a simple background. As a mother with the 3 kids, as you can see, I have a whole bunch of homeschool stuff everywhere, toys everywhere. I feel like I'm constantly picking up my house. But it's amazing when you just, before you even take a photo, no matter what camera you have, and you think, what's in the background of my photo? Is there little diapers everywhere? Is there toys everywhere? Is there little shoes everywhere? And if that's the story that you want to tell, having all those distracting elements, then more power to you. But if you really want it to just be your image, what you want to say, the story, just, you know, maybe take 2 seconds, pick up the laundry basket in your house, pick up the shoes that are on the floor, and just kind of, you know, make this little 2 feet by 3 foot sanctuary in your house so that you can take that really nice little photo. So it's amazing when you clean up the area around you and just use a simple backdrop like a white wall in your house, or maybe you have like a shed in the backyard that has a really nice texture, or you know, a wooden fence, or, you know, those kind of things. A really simple background will really bring your photo a lot less distracting elements in it. All right. Again, another light tip. Watch your light. I mean, this is good. This is a good light tip. You know, watch for creative light around you. And I kind of already talked about this and how the light was coming in to bounce off of my, you know, my kids' faces in the morning. This one was taken about like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. The sun was kind of low in the sky. It was coming through the window and just hitting the blinds really nicely. And so I literally ran to get my camera, and it's hard when you work with a 3-year-old. I mean, I don't know if you all have 3-year-olds, but they won't just stand there. So I literally had to be like, Caleb, look down and find the book. You know, where's the book? And I had him looking for this book, and I just, you know, as he was looking down, I saw that the light was just hitting him. Really cool. So I just took a picture then. So, but as you can see, I broke rule number 2, and I had a bunch of random, you know, diapers and wipes and a basketball in the background. But for me, the story wasn't all of those things. The story was the light hitting him. So, you know, I had to trade it off. I couldn't just clean everything. I had to get that light really, really quickly. All right, so here's another example of that. So here we have 3 different kinds of, let's call them light stories. Okay, because remember, photography, photo, light, graphy, writing with light. Okay, so we have 3 different light stories here. We have the first story. This was me and my husband when it was snowing, and I had a light source behind us, like I used a flash or a video light behind us, but you could do the same effect with a flashlight on a camera, on a phone, behind us to kind of illuminate the snow coming down. So this is very dramatic lighting with lots of shadow. It tells a story maybe of, you know, mystery, or, you know, you have this couple, you know, kind of romantic with the snow coming. The second one is kind of in the middle between the 2. This one has some shadow, some depth, but it was just window light, and it was just my son reaching for the flower on the table that I had there near the window. So I love that photo. And this is a third photo where we have super, super soft lighting. There's barely any shadow. It's very, very even. And actually, this was taken in my mom's bathroom. I know photographers are weird. We always find the most random light in the most random places. But bathrooms are really great because you usually have like white floor. You have a window coming in, lots of light. You have white walls. You have a white shower curtain. So all of that white is just reflecting so much light into the shot. And I just kind of took some colorful threads that my mom collects yarn and thread and all these things. And so I just thought it was a really cool kind of a color story that I was trying to tell. And I only had about, like, you know, 1 foot by 2 foot in the bathroom, and I was like literally laying on the floor taking this shot. So, but I usually don't tend to shoot such high white photos just because I'm never around blank floors. I have no kid stuff on them. I'm usually never around a lot of beautiful window lighting because I'm chasing kids all day. So this is kind of more what I usually shoot in the middle, because it's kind of like I have one window, I have, you know, kind of just some, this is how late and tired I am, haha. Okay, so we have, this is mostly what I'm shooting is just like maybe just one small window, and then you'll have kind of the natural shadow falling on the side. So that's kind of more my style, but I was playing around with this. It was really fun. All right, let's hop to it. We have tell a story with your shot using your angle, okay? So a lot of times, especially if you work with me or if you see me working with kids, I'm going to be literally on the ground half the time. I'm going to be squatting, I'm going to be standing on chairs, I'm going to be straddling, I'm going to do yoga. I always make a joke when I'm in a photo shoot that that's my workout, and it's a joke, but like for real, like it's a workout. Like I'm getting up, I'm laying down, I'm getting up. It's like so much core. So I see so many people, they just walk around with their camera like this. Like if I'm at the aquarium or if I'm at the children's museum or whatever, and they're just like they're just thinking, oh, let me just, like, this is going to be an amazing photo. Yes, you might get some amazing photos that way, but like most of the time, especially working with kids, like they're on the ground, they're, you know, holding things, they're running. So I'm on the ground a lot with kids. When I am working at a wedding reception, I'm literally standing on a chair like half the time, just because, you know, all the guys are taller than me, and you can see more of the story when you're like above it. So change your angle. You might tell a different story if you're standing on a chair or laying on the ground. I know one exercise I did early on was I just kind of took my camera, I went out to the backyard, and I laid on the ground. I laid on my back, I looked up, see what kind of things I could see. I went on my stomach, and I looked down and see what kind of things I could see. I looked to the side, and I looked to the other side. And it's amazing when you start taking the mind of maybe your subject or the person that you want to tell the story for, and you're laying on the ground, you're in their world, you're in the dirt with them, you're looking up, you know, just like what a child would do. And it's just amazing all the things that you could miss if you get into that adult mindset of like, I'm just going to walk around, you know, everything's, you know, at this level. But that's not true. Actually, a lot of the photos I take are at kid level. And I think that makes the viewer kind of enter that world and enter the ways that like a child would think. So that's a little tip for you. And again, sorry about my voice. I lost it yesterday. I was so mad. All right. If you are outside, try to stay in the shade as much as possible. Though I would caution you. Because early on, I would always tell people, oh yeah, well, if you're outside, go in the shade. Go in the shade. Yes and no. I would definitely stay in the shade if it's like super, super, super bright. Obviously, it's hot. But I would look for shade that is not super dark. You don't want your subject to look muddled, to look like there's no life in them. You don't want a lot of that cheetah print light that's coming through the trees. That's not going to be very flattering. You want a shaded area that's going to reflect a lot of that natural light. For example, I remember I was in a downtown area with a senior, and we were just walking around, and it was a very hot day. It was like August. So I didn't really want him to be in the sun. It was just so harsh. So what I did was I had him against a bank building, and the bank building was this beautiful marble gray kind of texture. And so it made a really nice background, but the white marble reflected so much beautiful natural light onto him. It was just really nice. Where if I went like under a tree or popping out of the side of a tree, like I see a lot of people ask me to do this, and I'm like, it's really not, the light is just not very flattering. If you are going to be under a tree or you are going to be in the woods, try to look for patches of that light bouncing off of the ground and hitting your subject. Like if there's some light, you know, shining on the ground or shining onto maybe the sidewalk. I mean, those are all wonderful ways to see. In this particular photo, this was of a little girl and her brother that I took, I think it was this March or this April. I'm so sorry. And as you can see, I had their back to the light. I had the light very, very soft, highlighting her hair here. And then I had this beautiful patch of of sunlight bouncing up and coming and just hitting her very, very subtly. And I had that light, you know, coming through the dress. It was just really nice. Now, if I would have put her, you know, under a tree or popping out of a tree with none of this natural reflector light, she would have probably just looked two-dimensional. You know, but because I had her in kind of an interesting shade, this is how the photo is popping her out of the frame. It's really neat how a photo is a two-dimensional medium that you can hold in your hand, but yet it can tell a three-dimensional story if you know how to use and manipulate the light in a certain way. Here's kind of another example of that. So this is use shadows to your advantage. So here's my son walking along the beach. Again, I had the light at his back. I always tell people, if you're going to be outside, have the light at your back, because it is going to cast a really beautiful shadow here. And obviously, if you're shooting at the beach, the sun is just going to be really, really harsh. So I always tell people, put your back to the beach. Now, if you're really, really, really going to be at the beach doing a family photo session, which is what I do all the time, I feel like I live at the beach in the summertime. What I do is I try to find some shade under a pier, under an umbrella, so the light is more diffused. If there is no shade, I try to have their back completely to the light, so that, and then try to have them their feet on some kind of pier, or even the sand will bounce up some light into their faces. So I try never to have people squint into the sun. It's just not a very flattering lighting source. I always recommend this tip, fill the frame, for people that are really interested in Instagram, people that are really interested in maybe promoting their own business. Like I have a friend who's a baker, and I kind of gave her some tips and tricks how to promote what she makes onto Instagram and onto her social media. And instead of just having like her cupcake, onto the side, and you're kind of just standing there like taking a picture of your cupcake, maybe having you over the cupcake, filling up the entire frame with the cupcake, or half of the frame, or just like a little detail of the icing. That is a way more interesting photo of just a cupcake, in your kitchen. You see all the cabinets and that kind of thing. So fill the frame with your photo. You could use this with the children, holding a snowman, them, blowing the snow off their hands, maybe their feet running through the grass. So there's a lot of creative ways that you can fill the frame with your shot and make it just a very interesting picture. It really makes people kind of zoom in and see, ooh, what is happening. You see a lot of this in Instagram, where like you see maybe a ribbon here and a flower and then an invitation for something and a pen, and everything is, filling the frame. So there's that. Use texture. I always tell people, the photo is a way for you to tell a story. So if your kids are playing with sand, if they're playing with Play-Doh, if they're playing, and I'm with preschoolers, kindergartners, and so we do a lot of hands-on. We do a lot of running around outside, playing with sticks, going to the children's museum, and all of these things are hands-on. So try to find textures, because as I'm seeing this photo as a viewer, in my mind I see the sand, but then I begin to imagine what that feels like. So it becomes this, again, this three-dimensional or sometimes four-dimensional feeling that I get with the photo. So instead of just taking a picture of, your kid, maybe playing on the swing, which would be, a nice photo to have, maybe coming in really, really close and see their hand, holding the chain of the swing, and you just kind of get their, maybe the side of their face, and they're coming in, and you just see a little bit of their smile. So having, maybe just a little story, they're holding the chain, you see maybe the bits of the rope is frayed. maybe, like, this is another photo I've done a lot, is I take photos of my kids' feet. I know it sounds really funny, but you know, they run around barefoot in the backyard. You have like mud on their toes. You have them, you know, sloshing through the mud, you know. And as I began to see them tell the story with what they're doing in their childhood, I want to capture that by taking a photo of just their feet running through the mud, of just maybe their feet, you know, throwing off bits of the mud, throwing off bits of the water as they're running through. So try to use a lot of texture and hands-on to kind of bring your viewer to smell those strawberries that you're picking. Imagine how they're going to taste, you know. So bringing some texture, some hands-on is an awesome idea. All right, showing details. I kind of already touched on this, but again, it's just a way for you to bring that viewer in closer, to have them feel like I'm really there. You know, these were waffles I had at some restaurant that my mom took me to. And I mean, I felt like an idiot because, you know, I bring out my camera, I'm in the middle of this restaurant, but the lighting was gorgeous coming in from the window. It was a really nice white plate that was very simple. The table was black, so it was just a really nice contrast. And you have this little powdered sugar on the top of the wall. It was like raspberries or blueberries and that kind of thing, and I just thought it was just such a great texture. You know, showing details is a really great thing. So possibly, you know, showing the coffee that you drank that morning. And if you remember the previous slide, I talked about, where is it? Oh yeah, so here we go. So back to this slide. So instead of maybe taking this photo, just taking 2 seconds to take your bowl and to put it near a window source and to maybe clean off the table a little bit or putting on a different plate, that is a beautiful way to show a little bit different of a story than just, oh, here's what I ate. Okay, so that's all part of it. I always take my camera everywhere, even if it's not my actual like nice camera, that my DSLR that I use. I'm always bringing my phone, or I actually take a photo every day, if you think about it. Even if it's just one photo, I actually feel naked without taking one photo, at least one photo, even if it's with my iPhone. Like, I just cannot not take a photo every day. And this is an awesome point for you. I take over 31,000 photos a year between my personal and my business. That is a lot of photos. Yes, I only have about maybe 500 or so that actually end up on my Instagram feed. I only have about maybe 20 to 30 from each photo session I do on Facebook. So I am taking a lot of photos. It is a lot of practice. It's kind of like when you start learning an instrument. You're going to need a lot of hours to practice. I mean, how can you get good if you're only taking out your camera once a month, once every 3 months, just during a birthday party, just only during Christmas, only during vacation? It's really about getting it out every day. I really challenge you, maybe take just one photo a day and just document your life that way. I read an article this week about a guy, this was back in the 70s and 80s. He had a Polaroid camera, you know, the ones that would print out, and he just took one photo a day for 18 years. 18 years. They weren't fancy, but he was documenting his life. And it was actually just a really touching story about how he fought, I think he fought cancer or fought some kind of disease, but it was just like his ups, his downs, his friends, the Coke he drank, the food he ate, the places he went, the places he vacationed, just little snapshots of his life. And at the end of his life, I mean, he had thousands and thousands. I mean, he took up an entire room. They spread them out. It was just really moving. So shoot every day. Try to take one picture every day, especially a good photo if there's good lighting. All right. Be picky. So, since I do take a lot of photos, I have room to be picky. So I'm at, so I homeschool, and I'm at the Children's Museum with the kids, and I'm always there because I have a membership, and that's just how it is. So I'm at this place with my 3 kids, and I'm always walking around with them, and I'm at the same place all the time. So you would think, I'm like, oh, I've done everything, I've tried everything, I've seen everything. Well, that's not true. I'm always practicing new things, trying to learn a new technique. I would literally take like 20 photos trying to get this technique down before I felt like, okay, I think I got it. So don't stop until you get it right. If you're trying to practice a certain technique, a certain lighting, a certain thing, keep shooting through it. I mean, thank God for digital. Back in the film days, you had 24 shots. You were done before you had to buy a new roll. Now you can take 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 photos on one memory card. So there's really no excuse to keep going with it. Keep trying. Even if you don't get it right the first time, try again. Make a challenge for yourself. Just like I talked about, maybe a day in the life project where you document one person's entire day, from eating, from going outside, going in the car, going to the store, whatever mundane thing that you think is too mundane to take a picture of, try that. Try getting out in the Dollar Tree with your camera. I did. Try going to the movie theater with a camera. I mean, obviously, not taking a picture of the movie, but before, getting the popcorn, sitting down, you're at a restaurant, you're walking to the car, you see the sun, so thinking in your mind a way to stretch yourself creatively. So that's one of the ideas. Day in the life, a 365 project, which is, very ambitious, but maybe just like 30 days, 30 pictures. 1 picture a day for 30 days. See how your progression is. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about photography is it is a visual representation of your world, but then you can go back and see how much you've improved. I mean, oh my goodness. If I went back 5-6 years ago, I'm like, I'm not even the same person, photography-wise, that I was. And it's just all, just the practice. Alright. This is one of my favorite topics. We're in the last couple of little tricks here. Kind of this age-old rule that people have for a long time is stuff in your photos. You don't just want to take a photo, willy-nilly. You have to think through, alright, part of the story that I want to tell, part of the light story that I want to tell, I have to think lighting, I have to think background, I have to think texture, I have to think angle. Well, this is another thing to think about as you're taking a photo, what makes a good photo, and is where do I want my eyes to look in the photo? Do I want them to look in the middle? Because, that's kind of traditional and kind of or do I want my subject to be on one side of the frame and have kind of a blank space going to them? Do I want them on the bottom of the frame so I have kind of your eye goes down to them? Do I want them in the top of the frame? Do I want them on the side? So these are all different things to think about. And here we go. So kind of the standby rule for a long time has been the rule of thirds. And basically the rule of thirds is a rule. I mean, rules can be broken. But it's a rule that basically says if I have these imaginary lines, kind of like a tic-tac-toe board, going through my photo, and I had the subject in one of these kind of intersecting line areas. For example, my daughter here in the upper half of the frame, in the swing. It makes for a more interesting photo than just her right in the middle of the frame. So that would be, you could have her over here, you can have her over here, you can have her over here. So that would be the rule of thirds. Some examples of that would be, like I said, scooting your subject to one side of the frame like this, one side of the frame like this, so that you have a more interesting shot. Now, So that's a rule of thirds. This would be something that is kind of a new thing that I discovered recently, is you have the rule of thirds, which is great, but I actually don't often shoot with the rule of thirds in mind. I am usually thinking about something else, and this would be the golden spiral. And the golden spiral is a very interesting concept that has been around for like 2,000 years, from the ancient Greeks, and how they, they came up with this concept of basically, everything beautiful in nature has a particular ratio, a particular mathematical formula to what makes it beautiful. So the proportion of our faces, the proportion of our bodies, the way that they would make architecture, the nautilus, the flower, the daisy, the seashell. So all of these things in nature have a beautiful ratio that makes them be beautiful. And with photography, we could use this. You see this a lot when you have a bride and groom on the bottom of a staircase, and you see the stairs wrapping around them for your eye to get to the bottom of the staircase. You see this when you see maybe a flower or a branch kind of curve around to the flower bottom here. But with portraits, a lot of times what I'm doing is I am thinking through how my eye is following. Let me see if I can zoom in here. How my eye is following this trail. See this? Yeah, I know it's really hard to see, but it's a yellow trail to my daughter here. So that would be the golden spiral. It's a little bit different than the rule of thirds. It's just two ways of framing your shot, two ways of giving your shot room to breathe, giving your eyes a rest, and making it kind of follow a particular trail to your photo. So that's kind of a way to frame your photo, think through your photo. So in recap, here we go. I'm going to really need some tea after this. Oh, I really hope my voice comes back tomorrow. All right. So in recap, we talked about, I'm trying to move this. Oh, there you go. In recap, we talked about what makes a good photo. It is the type of light you have, type of story that you want to tell with the type of light. Most kitchen lights and the light that's in a house is probably not going to be the best light for you to take photos inside. If you are outside looking for creative shade, not just shade, but creative shade with maybe patches of light coming, through the back of the hair, some light coming up, popping up from the ground up to softly hit the person. If you're inside, using maybe some creative lighting like a flashlight from the side, maybe a selfie light, or even if you do have the ability to get a flash, you can bounce it off the ceiling, bounce it off some walls. But it's basically looking for the light around you, looking for texture, looking for ways to fill the frame to tell the story, like the watermelon picture, ways to angle the shot so that you're telling a story and bringing that viewer into, touching the sand on their hands, walking through the beach, holding that seashell, feeling the snow. So those are different ways of just bringing that viewer closer to your subject area. If you are inside, I cannot emphasize enough, and it's during a nice day, put your subject near a window. Do not use the flash that comes on your phone or the flash that comes onto your camera unless it's a dire emergency. But if you follow those steps and think through learning to train your eye, learning to train your creativity, you are going to see a vast improvement of your photos. So again, this is Crystal Marshall from martialartsstudiophotography.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Martial Arts Studio, Instagram, Chica Marsh, and join me back tomorrow. We're going to talk about really cool DSLR tricks for those advanced people. You're going to see some really cool no Photoshop required tricks. So you're going to join me tomorrow on that. And again, all of my lessons will be up on the Facebook page. So at any time you can see them. And thank you so much for joining me, and have a wonderful evening. I'm going to go get me some tea. All right? Thank you.